Well, can I wish you a happy new year? Welcome to Relove Guitars, and it's 2024. We're into January, and we've got Tim's much loved Tanglewood here today. And this guitar is one of many of its kind nearing the end of its life, so kind of practically no adjustment room left in the saddle, which is relatively low, and a neck that tails away and a bit of a sort of dip here, bridge rising on the hump a bit there, certainly not level. So we're going to do the best we can to give it a couple years more playability. It's a nice old guitar, as you can see. It's got, you may be able to see, it's sort of got that sort of tapered shape there. There you go. So it has a nice, the best of the bowl back ovation ones that I actually don't much like, but it combines that sort of curve with some stability, if it doesn't roll around your tummy like the ovations do. So you know, we've got this situation here where it's old, it's tired, and it's gone the way of all acoustic guitars under constant string loading. And there's a strange thing, and I haven't worked this out 100% why, but the bridge, the top of the guitar pulls up a bit here, the bridge rotates forward, the action raises a little bit, and the neck end here dives into the body a little bit, deforming the sound hole here. Although, funnily enough, there's a kind of kink there, so this dives in more, this part here dives in more than that part there, which I would have kind of sort of think it would all go the same, but then of course it can't, because the solid heel here is fixed to the end block, which is pretty solid, so something about it still lets this part bend, and the result is overall you still get a rising action. So with a guitar like this Tanglewood, it's sort of budget priced but otherwise very nice guitar, what are your options? Well, your options are to do a neck reset, or you get to do a couple of little things here, which I've already done. We can slot the peg holes here, which I've done, so we get the strings to come out a bit more vertically. We can obviously take care of the first fret action as much as possible to give it as low and light an action here as possible. And then, you know, at a push you could, I suppose, you could plane down this a little bit, give yourself a bit more room. That is an option, but we're kind of doing without that. But the other thing I'm going to do with this one is fit the legendary Bridge Doctor system, or not the Bridge Doctor, it's the Bridge System, right? Now this has an interesting kind of, it's a mechanical prop system for this guitar top, and the idea, I'm going to just check what I can see, the idea is, because this is trying to rotate like so, then a solid structure in here helping to pull the bridge back a little bit, or at least stopping it then leaning forward any more, is a good idea. And this is a clever little device which is designed such that it goes in underneath the bridge. So you imagine there's no top for a minute, it goes underneath the bridge like so, that's pushing up against the bridge, and this touches the back post, and a screw at the back here pushes against this rod, and as it pushes against the rod, it basically pushes away and it rotates. It pushes outwards, but it rotates, kind of forces the bridge back down a little bit, because it pushes on the back, or if the fulcrum is here and this pushes up, so it pushes the front edge of the bridge upwards a little bit. So it's a kind of nice little thing. Now the results are variable. So I've had people get actual reductions in playing action as a result of it, and I've had people not improve the playing action but stabilize the rise of the action, so it doesn't go any further. So who knows, we shall just have to see. So I'm just going to put a bit of tape on the back of here, because I'm going to work on this in a second with a drill. So the idea is, first of all, we have to get, well, just to tell you what I'm going to do. I've done these holes. I'm going to attach the Bridge Doctor now. I'm going to put it under tension, and then I'm going to fit the new nut and new strings. And it's a bit, I wish I had some spare acoustic guitar strings, which I don't. The ones that came off here were incomplete, so and they broke, so I threw them away. But I will use the new strings to adjust the nut slots and get them as close as I can, and then we'll be able to try and assess whether it's made much of an improvement or not. Now, some people will suggest that it will take a certain amount of time to improve the. If it's going to make any improvement in the action, it'll take time. It might take a lot of time. However, the JLD people, these people here, they seem to talk about the fact that it will happen pretty much straight away. So it's one of those things. If you're doing this for a customer, you can't really promise them one thing or other. So the Bridge Doctor or system. The Doctor is a thing with 6 brass pins, which they use the pins to connect up underneath and twist the thing. But this is the Bridge System. But anyway, the principle applies. It says the patented JLD will dramatically enhance the volume and tone of your guitar without any modification to the instrument. So in a way, that's interesting that makes it the first claim for it, which isn't really why people go for it. But next sentence, easily installed in a half hour. Don't tell that, it's an hour. It's a bit more than half an hour if you're taking it very carefully. Easily installed in 14 hours, the JLD Bridge Doctor flattens bellied tops, preserves vintage instruments, and makes even inexpensive guitars sound great. As the strings pass over the saddle above the guitar top, there's a constant upwards and forward pull on the bridge, which can eventually cause the top to warp up. The JLD Bridge Doctor or system uses a leverage block and a tension adjustable wooden pressure post to counteract the upward pull of the strings. Oscilloscope testing has proven that the guitar top will vibrate more freely with the JLD Bridge Doctor installed. You have to take the word for it. Stu Mac in America, Don thingy, oh my god, what's his name? You know, the Postlethwaite. No, what's his name? Anyway, you know, Stu Mac guy. Completely forgotten his name. This is old age. Anyway, he recommends it. So actually, I've got a lot of respect for them and their experience, so hence I tried it out on a few guitars myself. There is always mentioning model classical guitars. Oh, so he's talking about classical guitar. Anyway, apparently you could use it on. Well, you could use this one on a classical guitar, actually. Anyway, so that's the theory of it. You know, the claims are quite specific that it improves resonance. Well, what does it do? It stiffens this top up a little bit, maybe. There were people who would say, well, that would do the opposite, but they make a claim. They've tested it on an oscilloscope. So there. So what we have to do is we have to drill a hole in the back of here. Now, prior to that, what they give you in the kit, basically, you drill a hole and countersink it a little bit, and this screw goes through into the top of this nylon post here, and that's how it attaches underneath there, and this pulls it snug, and then the rod goes through and does the pushing business. So they advise you to a certain size here to drill a hole with a countersink, so that once the screw is in place, you can then fill it in with this little pearl dot, which is quite cute. But I like to use, I've just lost it now, I like to use a little bit of rosewood that I've made up myself from somewhere. It's never an exact match, but sometimes it's very neat and tidy, and often you can't even see it. So the difficulty sometimes is, on a bridge like this, you've got to drill the hole. So I'm using a 7mm, so I've got myself a 7mm bit in this vintage hand drill. Actually, it's probably made for pushing into it's kind of made like a little Sten gun, but I found it in the Tavistock market and I just had to have it. It's foreign made, apparently. Well, that's what it's called, foreign called. Anyway, so we've got to drill, first of all, the bit to fit this in. So it's 7mm. We want a 7mm hole. 7mm hole, because sorry, 6 mil deep hole, and I've marked it up 6 mil, and I want 3 mils of it to be plug, and I want 3 mils to be, now what am I talking about? Maybe let me get this right, get my head arranged. I want to drill a hole, I want a certain amount, I want 3 mils of that stuff, and then I want a hole in there, but that's got to be countersunk. So do we have an option to get a countersink in there? Actually, I don't, we may do, we may not do. That's the tricky bit. So, we don't need 6 mils, that will take us, if we do 6 mils, well we can have 6 mils because it will give us more chance to fit this piece in here. Let's just check. I'm going too far. That's 9 mils. So 6 mil hole will take us to where 4, 5, something like that. Not quite low down. No, let's not do that. Let's do lesser than that, because we'll do 4 mil. So I'll get myself another bit of green tape to mark it. We'll do 4 mils, and then we'll, what am I looking for? I'm looking around for things. We'll do 4 mils, and then we will use a little bit of a countersink for the remainder depth we want the little screw to fit. So we'll get ourselves a bit of green tape. We'll measure 4 mil on here, which you can't see. 4 mils, and then I will put that across there like so. Let's just measure it. Yep, very nice. 4 mils. So that gives me the target depth. Now, and then we'll do a little bit of countersink with a small countersink. It always says don't use power drills. I've used battery drills with this, and it does work. The difficult bit is we've got a slope here, and the position we've got to, we don't really have, do we have any choice? Let's just think. That's going to go there. Could we come in? We could come in closer technically. Could we? No, we'd be too close. So the only place we can fit it is here, where I've marked it. And the problem with that is that it's a slope, and getting a 7 mil hole on a slope, as you can see there, is quite tricky. So it makes a fairly clean thing, but you can see it gets grubby as it gets to the edge. So if I hold my heavy duty thing up there, so there's our start point, and I'm trying to protect it from gravity at this point and do what it sort of suggests, which is work it down. Just have a quick look. So I can see that it's, you should be able to see if I'm going to put this down here. It's actually, it does feel better than using a power thing, because you can do it slowly. You see that? Eventually it's going to cut through, and we want to get it to make the full circle and then go down without any that scarf gunk around the edge. But this time it's just enough back from the edge to probably not do that. So again, it's got a little handlebar here, but I'm sort of holding it up like this to suspend it a little bit. Now, what you get with a curved back like this, of course, is it actually gets quite difficult to get the cut to begin at the back at all. We need it just deep enough at the back. I think we've probably almost just got it. It needs to have just enough room, and I'll show you now. It's quite a big difference between the front and the back because of the curve. We need just enough room to fit the piece in, round it off, and get it to think. But that's nearly almost there. So you can see that's a pretty good thing. I might just do a tiny bit more, holding this very heavy drill in as safe a way as possible. So I might get a fraction deeper than I was originally planning to, but I'm hoping it will just allow me to fit the plug in, which is a small plug, as you can see. But yeah, that will just fit in, and with some glue, that will kind of. That's slightly bigger than this diameter. This is a fraction under, that's a fraction over. This is done with a plug cutter, so it's never completely perfect. So I suspect some glue and maybe a bit of rosewood dust I might make up if we do need any packing. But I think with a bit of glue, that's probably going to sit in there quite nicely. So that's the first bit. Now I'm not too worried about doing things by hand. Well, I suppose we could try. Let's try doing something else. This drill does very light hand tight. I mean, it hasn't got this super tight chuck. I don't know if it might be broken or something, but it does. The chuck does up very, very lightly. So what I want to do now, if I can, is just use this to very lightly create me some countersink for the fitting screw head. Well, it's doing it, but it's a little bit off center. Hang on a second. Let's prop this end up a bit. I almost feel like this is where the power battery version of this would probably be better. So let's try that. A bit noisier too, but hey. 2, 2 and 1 and 2. Right, so now I'm going to put that in there. Okay. So that's not a great countersink, but it's doing enough. So the next thing we want now is a 3.5 millimeters drill bit all the way through. And again, this would probably, they recommend a hand bit. But, sorry, you probably got a terrible view because I've not thought about your needs. It is terrible. Oh, yeah. Oh. Right, so I'm aiming to go all the way through. Which I have so done. Okay. There we go. Through. Now, for now, I'm not going to worry about the filling part. I'll get onto that in a minute. But the idea now, is I can now, sorry if it's not very good, I can now, ooh, this is a thin-bodied guitar. Now I may have to do a modification. Now I've been in this position before. Dun dun dun. I think I'm going to have to modify. It's a thin-body guitar. Dun dun dun. So that's going to be, I think it's going to be, it's got a hole all the way through. This cuts its own thread. If I look at this, I don't think there's any problem with that. It will cut its own thread. But I'm going to take this down in a couple of stages just to make sure I'm going in the right direction. I didn't think about that, did I? So if you think about it, we're too tall. Now, we don't want to cut down that end. We can afford to cut down this end. So I think we should do it in cautious 5mm increment. So let's dial ourselves 5mm. And I will cut it, for the sake of things, with a bandsaw. 5mm. 5mm. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go until such times as we get the contact, or we have to rotate it, you see, inside the inside the thing, inside the body. So let's just double check. Yep, we'll cut that straight, and we will cut this. So let's get that marked across there, like so. Zing zing, and we'll perhaps put it on the sander. We'll sand it a fraction. Let's move a few little bits out of the way here. Sorry about the camera work for a minute. Just moving things so I can move the guitar off to one side a bit. Right, let me just go and reduce this. Yeah. So my first thing will be, can I turn it inside of here to get it where I need it to be? Almost. So what have we got? We've got directly behind this, there's our hole. We've got, there's the thing. Okay, yeah, we're still a bit on the long side. It's okay. So what I don't have is a way of measuring that space exactly. So let's do another 5 millimeters. Let's make sure, first of all, that the hole is, continues down here. Let's get the driver. Okay, well, in a way, the shorter it becomes, the less turning motion it's got, but I think that will still work. There's me next 5 mils. Just going to mark on there. Okay. With you in a second. If we have to go any further than this, then we are going to run out of room to do any good work. Okay, now we're just clear of everything. Okay, that'll work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this guitar on a hanger a minute. Where am I going to hang it from? In here. Hanger. Bear with me. Oh, I'm here with you. Okay, so what I want to do now is just get the sanding block up and do my best to make sure this is more or less flat. Okay, it looks. Okay. It's going to go in there. It's going to go up to there. Zip. Yep. They should make a note about that, because if you've got a thin, sorry, that was terrible. You've got no vision, overhead camera. Right. So now, what we want is that through there a bit, this in there, this in here, this in there. Come on here. So this is a difficult part, to do this unseen. Now, here's where let's get a manual one. This has to fit perfectly, or else my whole plan with the filler dot isn't going to come to fruition. This has got, this is either fraction too long, the screw, come on, I want you to come out. Okay. The screw doesn't want to come out now, it wants to push the thing back instead, so I've got to find a way of stopping it from pushing back. Come on, out. That's bizarre. It's actually drilling into the, it looks like it's fitting into the strange. It's pushing hard into the, let's see if I can get it right. Yeah, so I'm short of the screw's too long at the moment now because of the reduced thing. So the problem I've got is I can't seem to push the screw back out. It doesn't want to push out. It wants to stay in and push the block back for some reason. So I have no idea why that is. And when you've got your hand in there, now it's all flopping about lovely. I'm going to try and get it to come out this way. Come on. Wow, it's so weird that it doesn't want to come out of there. Come on, out you come. Is that out? How weird. Ah. Oh, okay. Now it's right. Okay, so that's basically undone it's undone our thing. Okay. I have to go and hold it while we take it out. That's not happened before. Thank you. Blimey. So it's still pushing back on the nylon rather than allowing the screw head to come out. That's really odd. Right, so that decided to come off. Let's just have a quick look. So what I didn't account for is now the length of this screw, it has to be shorter, so I'm going to have to cut it back by some degree. Let's take it back this much. Holy cow. Right, now let's try this again, will we please? I didn't like the fact that wanted to come out so readily. Not what I want. That's okay, it just has to stay there and not go anywhere else. Right. Let's just see how much that goes through. Okay. Not a ton, but that should be fine. It's the problem with this very little room to maneuver. There. Through there, maybe. Biting it, maybe. No. Oh man. This is, at this thickness, this is very hard to do. No, that's pushed through. There's so little manoeuvring room in here, it's crazy. No. Come on, through to there. No, that's wrong. Over the top of it. Come on, over the top of it maybe. Any chance? Yes, perhaps? Oh, blimey. So before, that wouldn't pull it up against the front of the bridge because it was, the piece was too long, the screw was too long. Now it's pulling up against the, finally, against the underside of there. Now, before I tighten it up, what I want to make sure is that the stick of doom goes in. Sorry, again, no rubbish view. I just want to make sure this goes in flush. Again, really hard to manipulate at this point in time, because if it's too long, which it probably just is, it doesn't want to go all the way through, or it doesn't want to go in neatly. Any chance of just going through correctly? It's down the bottom. That's a bit under tension, you see. So, truth is, if I do that, I still can't cut it short. Right, I'm going to have to make a guesswork. So, we don't know how thick the block is. This is a problem. This is a problem. I can see it there. It's down, right down low. Get into there. Get into there. Okay. So we've got it in there. Now the bit I want to do, and now I'm finding out with my using the stick to determine, is where is the edge of the rear block, and when it reaches the edge it will push further back and touch the wall, which we don't want. So there's the edge of the block there. That's probably central about there. If we look at it, see how it's fitted. So a lot trickier with the a thinner body guitar. Oh, right, I'm going to hold that there. I'm going to try and align it straight. So the problem is that it's hard to know where it's closest to its center line. That's close looking. Looks about right. And the only question is in order to get it in, can we now do this up without anything else moving? So it'll stay. I think that will do. Off with that. Right, so now we have the thing touching the back, which is cool, which is where we want it. we've only just got enough to cover this up, but if we're careful, we should be able to fill that piece and hide the thing. So now what I want to do is I have to get a pencil, and I've got to make a mark where the rod emerges from the block. But as you can probably guess, there's so little room in here now that I have practically no means oh Lord, little or no means of making a mark on there. I'm going to try it right-handed just because. So the idea is we pull out this thing now. Sorry again. We remove this thing. We examine the mark that I've made. Look at that. And the idea now is we cut back 9 mils from there. Like so. And then we mark that and we cut that off. Oh, let me just check something. Have I done it back to front? Tail block through there. We're still going to point it in towards, yes. Point it in towards the sound hole. Point it in towards the sound hole. Point it in, I've done it the wrong way. Stupid me. Let me just actually, well, I don't need to do that. I know what length I've got to take off. I shall just do it opposite. So this is back to front. Does that sit on there? So that will go into there, and that will touch that like that, and push. So we're taking basically. Let me just think. That comes through, and it's going to the same to there. Right, let's try it one more time, just so I don't go mad. I'll turn it round the right way. So when you measure it, like I'm doing now, you make you line your pointed end, drop it, you put your pointed end in the block, feed that through towards there, make sure it touches the tail as we've just done. Then we do the marking again. Make sure it's pointed all the way through. Yep, and come through to the like so. Pull it back out. You can see it's a lot of faff dangling around. So there's our mark, and then we go 9mm back from there. 9 mils back from there. So. And then we cut it off there. Then we take this end and we put it back in through there. This time easier to manipulate because it goes in easier. Well, still not that much room to move. We go in to. Can we get into the block, please? Now, this time I'm aiming to get the pointed end sticking back towards us. There we go. That goes in there, and then we get our hex driven screw. We go down to here, and then we try with all our might. No, it ain't going to work. And then again, may have to go right-handed for this one. Now we put this grub screw in, and the idea is that we then tighten it, and that contacts the pointed end of the thingy stick and begins to push it back. But finding the end of this in order to get it inserted is in and of itself a right royal challenge. There's the hole, there's the thing. So it's going into a narrow screw thread, a narrow nylon screw thread, which I've now got it in. Oh, can you believe it? And then it starts to tighten at that point. I think it's gone in, hasn't it? Yeah. Well, that seems to be. I'm just going to get a look in here with the light again. That appears to be connected up. I've got to modify this. I bought one of those mirror things, and not that it'd be much good in this narrow thing, but I've got to modify it because it's too bright, and it reflects back onto itself. Okay, that's in. That's only a small amount of the way in, and the rest of it now has to be a matter of tightening up. And I think we are mostly pointing in the right way. I'll just see if I can ascertain the angle at which the block is. Not even easy to do that. At which the block is sitting. Now, without being able to hold it on down there, I don't think I can make any sensible guesses. I'm going to have to trust my eyeball positioning. Yeah. Let's have a look. That's as close to straight on as I'm going to get. So now our thing here is to continue. Reinsert the hex key. I know it's about the plug or the bolt. No, what's it called? A nut. Grub screw is now about 2 or 3 millimeters into the hole, and it's beginning to tighten up. What they never tell you in your good old JLD is how much to do, when to stop, and so on and so forth. It's kind of left to your own sweet devices. And really, without carrying on and checking things out, you won't really know. But anyway, that's now done up. Let's get a few things out of the way. So, I don't know if you can see in here. There it is. You can't move you around enough to get point at the stick, which goes back to the wall, but there's where you can see how it's just had the block now is just a bit above the brace. Anyway, so now we've got that's nicely solid. It actually, right the second, it looks flatter than it does when it's got the strings on, but that may just be the business with all the strings being on or not. Okay, so that's the most of the business with the JLD Bridge System on. As you can see there, somewhat complicated by why is my container not shutting? Somewhat complicated by having a narrow body guitar, but I'm not going to complain. So I don't need to worry about anything there. I'm confident that this is done up as tight as it's going to need to be. That's that done. And the next thing I would be looking to do now is to consider getting the plug in. I think I'm going to go fat end first, and I'm going to put some glue in it now and tap it in. There's a slightly fatter end than not, and we'll end up cutting it, scraping it down, but I think it just needs to get in. Now I could put it in with faster drying resin. I think you'd have to, if you ever want to take that out, you've got to take it out anyway, but the resin would be faster drying, which means I could scrape it flush probably tonight Wood glue would take overnight to set really hard. I'm not sure one would look any better or worse than the other because you'd hardly see anything of either of them, so there wouldn't really be any trace. So I'm going to opt for the resin so we can finish tonight. So to begin with, what I'm really only bothered about is getting this little plug of rosewood in and tapped into place. Let's get a mixture of both hardener and not hardener. Ooh, got it on my fingers. I got it on my fingers. I got it everywhere else. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you have to drill and dig it out if you ever wanted to take it out, but I don't think anyone ever would. This is the sort of the golden days of the guitar, really. It's final countdown. So what I think I'll do is, for fun, I think I will, maybe I'll mask off a little bit of the bridge, if I can, so I can carry on, put strings on and whatnot. That's going to sit, that's not going to sit very well. Some masking anyway. So it's New Year. I don't know about you folks, but it's a strange New Year for me. We had a very quiet at-home Christmas, which I'm grateful for because I'm a bit of a Christmas humbug. Not because I'm a miserable git, which I'm not really, but just I find, first of all, when you're a guitar fixer, it's hard to make a ton of money. Well, let's put it another way. When you're a guitar fixer like me, who knows pretty accurately what his energy levels are, the maximum energy levels that I've got, it's difficult to make a ton of money because I can only work so much time without getting kind of worn out. And so I kind of run things with that level in mind, which is fine, but yeah, it's limited earnings. There's one of me and only a certain amount of time. So you can only make so much money unless you push yourself like crazy to a point where you do yourself harm, which I'd never want to do. So I take my kind of health and well-being seriously, and just I do a lot of work at home, buying and ordering things, talking to customers and so on, but there's a kind of limit to how much actual practical work I can do. So for me, I wouldn't change it, and I've said this probably many times to people who are probably sick of hearing it, but I wouldn't change it. And when I talk about the realistic, being honest about the money side of things, I wouldn't have it any other way. Let's just get that green facing the right way round. Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. So I have to make that the first caveat. I wouldn't change it. I don't want it to be any other way. I like the amount of work the workload I've got. It suits me. I enjoy my work. But it doesn't really make for a lot of spare cash, and therefore everything's always slightly marginal, such as you know, I need to get a new car, but there isn't spare money for it. I need to pay the accountant, and I will have to struggle and push to be able to pay that. So it's always a little bit marginal. And it'd be nice if it wasn't, but that's about, you know, the best I can hope for is to kind of scale up a little bit more than that. I should, now the argument would be, you should have done that, made that lower, because cutting that off is going to be very difficult. Well, it is, but I'll probably use a Dremel thing, and I'll probably slice it off and then sand it back carefully. Right. Anyway, so yeah, so right, for me, Christmas is a sudden, it presses some buttons for me, so every time it comes round, I'm reminded that I can't go out and buy gifts, and I haven't got the spare cash to go and buy lots of gifts and stuff. And if I'm not careful, I can quickly start to feel a bit self-pitying about it, which we can do without, I can do without, and everyone else can. So it's not my favourite time of year. So I'm glad it's over and done with again. And we're back into the year proper. Chuck away the remains. Well, I thought I had an extra spare one of these bridge. I bought 2 Bridge Doctors, but I must have used them both, one after another. Anyway, right, after all of that terrible camera work, we are there. That's setting. Now, I'm still in that sort of, let's get the adjuster thing back. Let's have a look at how things are sitting. Well, what we can do is we can now replace the saddle as was. Saddle's pretty low, as you can probably see, and so we have we want to be able to do a little bit more adjustment on it, and mainly the slotting of the slotting of the whatchamacallit, those things. The slotting of the peg holes was about getting a bit of reduction down. So I'm just looking at this now. That is not looking bad as is. Woo! Woo-wee. That isn't looking bad. I have a feeling that perhaps with a tiny little bit more sort of tweak for good measure, do it this way around, tweak for good measure, we might just be into the realms of improved enough, and with the slots we can do a tiny bit of reduction on the old saddle. Now, I'm getting to the point now where I can't turn any further with by hand, or sorry, with the thingy, the key placed in pointing without getting it that way round, which I won't be able to move it very well. But I think, I've got a feeling that's going to do me. Now, while we're at it, let's get on with the nut. So we've got a new nut for this, and this one was pinging all over the shop. It's made of horrible plastic, so it's got to go. So meanwhile, we will knock this off, but I will do a couple of little measurements of it. Yeah, that was kind. Well, kind and not kind. So you can see it's lifted up the glue has lifted up some wood with it. We might be able to stick that back in to level things out. Otherwise we have to level the whole thing, flatten the whole nut slot down. It's often the case that happens. It's not ideal. Question is how successfully we can prise this flaky wood off. Very fine. Let's bring that little chopping board up. Not the end of the world, because we've got some extra height probably in this nut. So if we had to flatten the shelf down a bit more, we can still do that. But I'm just going to see whether it's feasible to reattach this and get some of it out, but not all of it. That's the surface. That's the surface. Hey. Do I want to try and attach that? So that came out that way. So that's probably going to go over to there. Gold. Shiny side up. So this is a fun game. Let's put that down gently there. That's the far-reaching piece. And this will be the flat piece at the other end. Is it really? Does it? Is it? Can it? Probably. There's a bit still on there. I'll have to live without. Let's see what goes. It's not, again, I'm going to just try it for the sake of struggling, but it's not the end of the world if we can't do it. That's going to go there, I think, judging by what? Who knows what? Is that's got an edge around there with a bit of finish on it. So that, feeling like that wants to go that way round, but I could be wrong. So let's try. It'd be nice if we could just fill this with a leveling solution. Get in there. Okay. That's the next bit. Seems to have dried already. Drop this bit in. That seems to go in as well. It's actually not very easy to tell at all what's going on here. We could try and press it down with another nut, but what would happen is it'd probably just get lifted straight back up. It's very slow drying glue. I've got a bit of stuff here. It's expensive glue boost stuff, which I'd rather not have been using for this purpose, but pounds down the drain. Pound notes. I'll show my age. Okay. So that gives us a flat bottomed surface, which probably will work all right. That fits in, actually it just drops in perfectly size wise. But so what I want to do is I want to get the slot leveling slot filing thing. Let's get you a view. Sorry. So this glue kind of sticking up a bit. We can just help to try and take it down and flatten it a little bit. Now I'm going to, while I'm here, I'm going to measure up the this original nut, because that will give us a close target for playing action. Although I'm going to finish the final action settings using the files. So we've got 706 is the low E measurement, 706, and the high E one, which doesn't fit in the slot exactly, is 744. 744. Sorry about that. Okay, so just to begin with, this one will show as 848. 848 on the bass side and 864 on that side. So the difference between those two is 142. 142 on the bass side, and the difference on this side is 120. 864. Right. So what we can then do is we can say, if we're going to remove that 120, we're going to go, the target is going to be take this one to 744, and the target is going to be to take this one to 706. But it tells me how much I need off either side. So if we go with 120 as the guide, it's very difficult to draw 120 onto anything, but we should be able to mark it up onto here. Terrible view, that's my fault, I'm not paying attention. If I mark up 120 on, actually it's 142 on the other side, but if we go 120 with a slight slope in the gradient, that will give us a line to follow. Okay, so I want to do the fine tuning, as I've mentioned, with the nut files. So I've got to be careful that I don't get over ambitious. What I really am aiming to do just now is to take this down to take it down a bit, nothing too extreme. Where has it has, right. And it's going to go a little bit more at the bass side. So cutting by hand, sanding by hand, I mean, is crude process, but we'll go until we get close to it and then try and fine tune the cutting. So I want to be in a position where I've only got the minimum amount of, or the smallest amount of nut filing to do. So it's a little bit leaning on the front, that's the bass side, lean over. Yeah, so 2024, somebody said in a podcast or something I was listening to yesterday, described it as, you know, we're in a decade or a period now of military countries suddenly once again jousting, vying for military power supremacy in the world. It's actually quite an unpleasant thought. and it's true. You know, as soon as America has been distracted, well, as soon as Russia did what it did, all your other peoples, your Chinese leaders, start looking at what's possible when the, for right or for wrong, with the so-called world policeman isn't looking anymore. And that's quite worrying that it's, you know, it's everybody seems to be doing it, from the China to Middle East. Kind of destabilization opportunism, and sadly it seems to be absolutely all falling perfectly for our friend VV Putin, which is a real shame that it's all going his way in terms of what his strategy is. Just destabilize like crazy. Get stuck in and destabilize, because that's what'll pay off. Anyway, let's just do a quick check. And I find that really depressing when you hear people taking incredibly polarized sides, in inverted commas, sides, in these subjects, and sort of knowing that of all the people enjoying the disruption and the conflict, all of the division in this country, for example, UK, all of that division suits the Russians just perfectly. And when people kind of set themselves up in very strong polar opposites with each other, it saddens me that perhaps we don't see that's real. You know, that's the real beneficiary of these binary oppositions, these furious binary oppositions. The real beneficiary are the Russians, and the more they're able to weaken other countries by successfully creating that division, the more they're going to be able to exploit it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this stuff here. Right, that'll do. A little bit of that stuff there. There's a bit of a permanent grime on here that isn't going to go away, so I just thought, now it is. Look at that, gone. Getting into the corners here. Yeah, so I don't know how many other people feel as the way I do at the moment, but I think I've said before, I've never actually felt as unoptimistic about our little species and where it's going at the moment, which is a shame. And that's probably a function of being older anyway. When you lose your natural youthful optimism about what's possible and stuff. It can change as you get older, and you think, where's all the fantastic human evolution stuff that I dreamed about, that I read about in all those sci-fi books that I just was in love with as a kid? Oh, we're looking at nothing in particular. Sorry, terrible view. I'm down here cleaning. Anyway, yes, so that's where I'm at. I wouldn't call it depressed or anything like that. Just concerned. We're in a bad way. A bad way. I think we're in not a good way. Which is a very great pity. I was actually the nearest thing I saw to something extremely uplifting and optimism inspiring the other day was the Russian woman who has unbelievably had the courage to step up and attempt to be an anti-war, inverted commas, anti-war candidate for the Russian elections. And of course the FSB and the powers that be have found her immediately disqualified her immediately from taking part due to alleged imperfections in her application or something. You know, she spelt her name wrong or wrote with the wrong biro or something like that. Anyway, she's been fully struck off and forbidden to take part. But it was a very it was a ray of hope and actually an act of extreme courage. I mean, there was quite a few discussions around, like, is she a what do they call them? You know, a stool pigeon? No, plant. Is she really what she claims to be? Would anyone be that suicidal in Putin's Russia? And it sort of looks like she might be that courageous and that idealistic in Putin's Russia. But to see somebody have the courage to stand up and declare they want something else, because it can't be undone by history. You know, that's what's inspiring about it. She will be remembered for having done that. Good for her, I say. And actually, of course, the thing that's amazing is that there's no real reason why the Russians, if they needed or wanted to, couldn't undo all of the situation they're in straight away. You know, and if enough of them wanted to change things, they could so do by just getting together and marching on the powers that be and say, no, we're not going to do it this way anymore. There's only so many that can be taken away, locked up, or whatever else terrible things they could do to them. And it's the same in any country. It's the amazing thing. That people always have the power. The people are the only power. And it's only how far from realizing that, or how disconnected from that they are, that makes the difference. So, I don't know. Let's see if I can Dremel away this. Yes, the power is always with the people. The people! Nobody else has got it. There is only ever one dictator, and there is only ever one top echelon of power brokers they are a finite number of people, and in truth, the people are the only power. And it's only when they recognise that things get interesting. Now, this is an interesting place to be at with this, because sometimes you can try and do careful scraping, but sometimes it can just, however careful you do it, it can cause strips to pull up, because you've got to sort of start on the edge of the thing. So it could be a mixture of, we could be sanding it with a drum bit, or we could just be carefully slicing it down like this with a curved blade, which is obviously what I'm currently doing. And we could be moving around to get a bite in different places, so we don't pull any chunks out below the waterline. That's what we don't want. But there is a grain on this, so I'm trying to some extent follow the grain as much as possible. But yeah, so I think it's Ekaterina Duntsova, is it? Duntsova. Anyway, good on her. We shall remember her courage set against certain old powerful men's cowardice and brutality. Anyway, wouldn't it be wonderful if a group of people could stand up and say, no, had enough of this, but without violence, without any, with minimum. I guess when old power brokers try to hang on to power, there's always, well, there often is, blood shed to some degree, but it would be wonderful if it could be done without. It'd be fabulous. So I'm just trying to keep a track on where I am. Right, yes. So I guess of all the things, if there's anything I feel hopeful about in that sort of part of the world situation, it would be that her courage has a ripple in that country which deserves to A, live better than it does, B, be part of a modern family of nations. Forget all this, whose secret services and whose military bases, and wouldn't it be wonderful for Russia to join the 21st century? I saw some video footage of somebody showing a tour of their place in the village, house in the village, and they showed the toilets, and they were outside, and it was completely normal for rural or non-metropolitan Russia. So the toilets were outside, and they were an absolutely disgusting, literally what Trump called certain countries an S-hole. Such a massive, wealthy country. Why can't it be developing civilization and content and satisfied people instead of what it's doing at the moment? I mean, by the way, the same applies to all nations. Why can't we all be doing more of that than meddling with other people's things? Or I'm reading a book at the moment. It's probably a very old book, but it's about Lehman Brothers. It's Goldman Sachs, actually, mainly. But it's a sort of history of Goldman Sachs and stuff around and leading up to and after the... Actually, it was written in 2011, so it's not a lot after the global financial crisis of 2008, so it's in the sort of quite close aftermath. But anyway, so it covers a lot of the lead up and the history of Goldman Sachs and other finance houses, similar finance houses. But just incredible that, you know, when you look at that, how that whole finance house business works, you know, the Wall Street thing, financial products, and it just seems that, you know, the religious texts were right in that, you know, the root of all misery is the craving for things and thereby money, and all power and all power broking that we experience and that we suffer the results of comes from that as well. It's always, you know, it's always some great dictator wanting more of somewhere and more security or more possessions to feel secure, and it's such a pity, you know. And you often see people write deliciously naive things like, why can't people like Putin just understand that, or wake up and discover how wonderful it is just to be alive, and stop all this expansionism and, you know, what do you call it, grasping and grabbing and all that sort of stuff. And of course it's deadly simple. Why can't they? Why can't he? Why can't they? And of course they never can, because I suppose once you are fearful, if you are fearful, and you're craving possessions in this hope that they will save you from your fears of, I don't know, mortality or whatever it is that terrifies you, it just seems such a shame. And I don't know if people like that ever get out of it in their own lifetimes. Some people must do, so it must be possible. But it's like, what was I thinking of? A while back there was a lot of talk about China and its plans to invade Taiwan, and I had this sort of just idea came to me one day that, you know, everybody lives in quite a great deal of fear of that being a possibility or becoming possible. And I just thought, at this point in history, wouldn't it be an amazing thing if you were a Chinese premier? Wouldn't the most amazing thing to say in response to all of the kind of worries of the rest of the world, say, actually, you know what? We could go on a war footing and we could destabilize the world, but actually, you know what? We're going to wait and win back Taiwan by treating it brilliantly and not threatening it. And, you know, why couldn't you do that? Wouldn't that be wonderful for once? But I guess that's mighty hopeful. But you know, the point about it is, I suppose, is that it may well be unlikely, but it is nonetheless possible that one day a leader could do that and say, do you know what, we don't have to do it that old way where I go around frightening everybody and threatening everybody and, you know, putting the world on the edge of you know, threat of war and so on. Instead, you know, even VV Putin, you know, he could have said, even at any stage, you know what, I do want to be a good leader to my people, and actually what I've realised is if I carry on doing this, I won't be able to fix the roads and give good childcare to the peoples of my nation, my federation. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to withdraw from Ukraine, and I'm going to dedicate my time and energy to making my country a great place to live and a rightful member of the family of civilized nations. Wouldn't that be amazing to see one leader at some point, one leader somewhere do that? I would just be astonished and amazed, and we'd be overjoyed, wouldn't we, if we actually saw that happening ever. It's possible, but it never does happen, unfortunately. Something about being stuck in the need for the only one interpretation of power and greatness, that you can't get out of it. You can only ever see it in that way. Such a shame. It'd be so cool. Imagine what the world would feel like if Putin said that. They'd say, do you know what? I think we can have him, and Russia can come back into the world, the civilized family of nations. How wonderful. It's like a prodigal son almost. So it's quite a little bit difficult. What I'm going to do is I think I'm going to just sand off this top, the pencil marks I put on here before, and then I'm going to leave this till I'm at home, and I'll finish it off camera. But to begin with, I'll just get rid of the pencil marks on here. I'll let the resin fully set before scraping it, sanding it flush. Shows, you can see how battered the finish on the top of here already is. But I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back and sand that at home at my leisure. Now, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, at this point, put on the strings after my waxing lyrical about all the wonderful possibilities. But yeah, I'm naive, I'm a dreamer, but I'd absolutely love one day a way out, instead of the inevitable, the only way things are going to go in this current situation are that either Russia wins, in inverted commas, destroys its neighbour and continues to menace the rest of the countries that Putin wants to put back into the Soviet model, or the West backs Ukraine wins, and somehow Ukraine takes back or stops Russia's expansion without Putin and his cronies reaching for the big red button. Or the third option is that, or possibility is that Putin reaches for that button anyway. So that none of them are, they're all, unlikely isn't the word, but they're not, there's no really good outcome from here on. And the man himself probably, or ought to be aware of that. And, instead of being the person who takes it to the end of everything and destroys the world, he could be the one who changed beyond anyone's expectations and became a transformed leader. Would be entirely possible. Never happened, but wouldn't it be nice if somebody could do that and say, actually, I'm going to go the whole other way, because there's nothing that could be better for my people than me stopping this direction that I'm going in right now. Of course, then you have to say, well, the person involved genuinely doesn't think of it like that, and he sees the way he's going right now as the best thing for his people or himself. But what a nice thing it would be to see somebody stop doing what they're doing because they realized it was better to do it a different way. Human beings, do they ever get to that place? Probably not. What I'm looking at now, yes, we're looking at the strings. So the strings are going on, so I'm going to have to obviously use them to test the action of everything at the moment, and see what we can reduce, and obviously I'll have to take them off again a bit later. Of course, if it's ridiculously naive to imagine that a leader would do that, given that they've grown up thinking that way, they're entrenched in their thinking, then I guess it would be, wouldn't it be amazing to imagine somebody comes along or a group of people realize that they don't have to be dragged that way by someone else. And that's why Ekaterina Duntsova gave me a kind of burst of optimism, because she could be a catalyst for that. But hey, failing that, unless something like that happens in Russia, I think we will be heading towards some pretty grim stuff, because there's no pleasant way out unless change came from within. I don't think there's any clean, tidy option other than that. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to use these strings to set the first fret action on this guitar. Or actually, I'm going to assess and see if I can make an initial final saddle reduction, which I'm hoping we can do. And then the nut slots for the first fret action. And then we can leave things be and see if there are any changes as a result of the that thing, the Doctor. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's definitely flatter. Okay, so I have to, let's tune these up. Whoop, tune these up. there we have. Now what I'm looking at first of all is, let's look at the brake angle we've got now. That's improved because it's coming up higher, as you can see. The base side is interestingly already as low as it can be. Well, yeah, it's okay, but we can't really get much more. That's because it's not in. Hold on a second. That's because it wasn't tightened. So the base is as tight as it will be, but we've got a bit of room now. We could go down on almost, well, a bit more on the treble side. So we could reduce that. Let's take a quick measurement. Let's look and see if I can zoom out. Let's take a quick measurement and just get an idea of the action currently. Okay, it bends away here, so it's too high. So we're 2.53. We're about 3.6, 3.75, 3.5, 3.6, and 3.5, 4, 3.6 and 4. 3.6 and 4. We could possibly get a bit further out of the, we can get some out of the top side. We could probably get a bit more out of the bottom side, but I didn't slot those on purpose, but I think it could do with a bit of slotting there as well, but that will mean removing everything. But if we take that down, of course, that then brings down the first fret action somewhat. So what do we do first? Well, let's undo this. Oh, let's just check the relief as well while we're at it. Yeah, it's pretty flat. But it's not an issue really, in the sense that right now it's flat, but it doesn't have to have much relief because, quite frankly, there's the action's so high that it's not really going to make a hell of a difference either which way. Now I don't think, oh blimey, I'm not sure this has got any willingness to do anything. That looks like it's been cranked really hard. It's got a tiny bit more in there. Okay, well I think we need to remove these. Ideally, I would prefer to do this with sacrificial strings, but we haven't got them, so we have to do it with these, I'm afraid. I'm going to get them off and out the way. Okay, so now what I know is, let's remove these. We'll pull up our pegs. And we will do two things at once. We will slot, notch the low strings a little bit, and we will put these off to one side, thank you. We'll notch the bass strings and we'll take down a small amount off. Let me put these somewhere safe for a minute. You sit there and don't upset anyone. Okay, so we know we can lower this somewhat. I think I have to guess this because there's no real scientific way of knowing when you run out of adjustment. I think let's look at 3.6. We really want 2.5, and that means a 1 millimeter reduction, which is 1.4. Okay, I'm going to attempt 1.4 on the treble side and see if we get any spare room left over. Now I'm not sure we're going to get away with so much on the base side, so I'm actually going to come back a little bit less on the base side, which sounds a bit weird, but and I can't make that pen work. Okay, so it's a smallish reduction, that's what I'm going to do, but in order to sort these out, I'm going to have to now drill out some bits for the bass strings. I think we'll use this size, and it will be a bit noisy. Thank you. No, wrong thing. Okay, so I need some, what do they call them, chucks? No, the thing that holds the things in place. Mandrels, Aussie mandrels. So, of course, none of these are the right size. Does that one work in here? It doesn't really. It's the right size, but it's the wrong colour. Let us see. Oh, Let's see if it works. I don't know. Well, actually, it does work. That's interesting. That is a bit odd. It works, but it's either this bit is bent or the mandrel is the wrong size and it's bent. Let's try one more. Let's see if that's going to improve in terms of straightness. If it doesn't, then I'll have to change the mandrel for something else. No, it's okay. Oh, it's noisy. Wish I had some brighter light. I'm not sure this is really holding it properly. It's not far off. What happened there? Well, it went all the way down, didn't it? Now I'm losing track of what piece I was using. Yikes. What's that? Come on.
to get this cut, not the best drill bit. There we are.
Finally. Okay. Put all these back in here. Sorry about this, it's taking longer and going around in a few circles, but mandrels, Aussie mandrels. Right, so those are drilled out. So now I've got some reduction to do. You go there, you go there. This is my saddle reduction. That's interesting that that's already leaning. It's got a tilt. Tilt away from, where's it tilting? Tilt to the front edge. Really? It's not how it should be. Slow process, I'm afraid. But so yeah, my hopes for 2014, my wishes for 2014 are that the people of Russia find it in themselves to take back some control and prevent the whatever the word is, escalation of this unjust war against a sovereign nation. Whatever its strengths, weaknesses and frailties, you know, people negate, they sort of, they debate in such a way that they say, ah, well, it was corrupt before and there was lots of corruption, therefore it's okay that Putin does this, or they talk to NATO in such and such a way, therefore it's okay that Putin should invade. And I just think that's an insane perspective. It just can't be like that. You either you're permitted to be sovereign with all your faults and weaknesses, or it's a joke. The whole thing doesn't matter, and let's just admit that it's survival of the mightiest. You know, the might is always right, and because that's what it seems to often come down to. And like, I don't know about you, but I hoped we'd got past that and we were heading to a world where there was more a bit more enlightenment and I don't know, order, and a securer future. But hey, I could be completely deranged. So I'm now taking this, hopefully, down. I don't know what's happening battery-wise. You could have run out of batteries by now, for all I know. Yes. Yeah, anyway, I think regardless of what you think of one country or another, it either has a right to sovereignty in this world of ours, or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then it is a rule of might. You know, the strongest dictates to the weakest how things shall be, and it's a pretty sad world to have ended up with. Right, so there's a small reduction, the last reduction possible on that end. So I'm going to replace the strings. I don't think we can take any further action down, so we'll take this, put the strings back in. Actually, do you know what? If I do that, I'm still going to have to take them off again. So let us endeavour to clean this bit up once and for all before we finish it, because if we don't, then I'm not going to be able to finish it and clean it up. So there's me scrapery thing. So I'm going to aim to scrape this flat, but it's not behaving the way repaired materials like glue boost would work when you'd use that kind of scraping technique. Rosewood is a different kind of creature. So either I'm going to have to scrape it along its grain like so until we get close to being flush, and then revert to sandpaper. Terrible views and stuff. Fiddly work. Chisel wouldn't really help here either, so hence I'm not reaching for one. Some small file. I can get a bowed blade, which is quite good, but it's kind of worrying because it can dig in still, and then we can end up getting there. Nearly there. This is so satisfying. It's boring, but satisfying. Satisfying for me, boring for you. Aye. So nearly there. I suppose I will just continue doing what I was doing, kind of holding on to this as a swinging, pivoting blade. Very close to being good. 2024, I would like less war, less oppression of people by rulers, less greed and scared, grasping type of behaviour, more self-awareness, bit of sandpaper 1500, a little bit just to level this out. Possibly a bit more of this 240. And for really loved guitars, what I would like is more great customers like I've had so far, and maybe some exciting projects that are maybe a bit better earning, but nonetheless more great customers to work for. That's almost invisible. Well, near enough. I suppose this one's a bit gritty, so I might just go over the top of this one as well while I'm at it, trying to even out some of the dings and grit. Yeah, some more good stuff. I had a email from a good customer of mine from 2 years ago, or 2 years ago probably. Well-known songwriter, guitarist. Hopefully, I might be able to make a custom guitar for him this year. That would be nice. So that is almost completely smoothed out. So all I'm going to do now is put a bit of oil on it, and you would never know that it had been done. So after all of that farting about, and now we can put the strings on one nearly last time. Okay, it's a bit darker than the original rosewood, because that was probably Santos rosewood or something, and mine was real rosewood, but look at that. You would never know there'd been a thing drilled through it. Okay, time to put the strings back on. Blow my nose, wipe my hands. There it is. Yeah. So more good work, please. And to be able to carry on do it. So that means good health still. That's a bit, I was just thinking, occasionally I do, occasionally I do think, but occasionally I think, oh yeah, what if I got sick now? I wouldn't be able to do this. And that's a fact, Jack. And it's an obvious fact, but when you're working for yourself like this, there is only you and the hours you've got. And so if you were to get sick, you have no you've got no way out really. No one can carry on and do your stuff. So it's a real concern. I'd hate to suddenly find myself unable to do this. I mean, not partly because it's our income, and it's the only one really, but also mainly because that would be awful. That would be it for doing work that I enjoy. Yeah, I could probably write something, or do something with my brain instead of my hands, but I genuinely don't think I would be a very good get up at 5 a.m. type of person. I wouldn't be very useful to you. Good. I've given myself back an angle there. Bit of angle. Sorry, I'm just doing such a bad job of camera. Oh, I really am. Yes, so I don't really have a lot of options, because I don't think I could get up and do 9 to 5 for another person. I think often you can get to that point in your life where there's no point pretending otherwise. You sort of know that you just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for you and for anyone else. So it all hangs then on being well enough to do this, which you can't take for granted. I can't even manage to operate my camera lens properly, so I should talk. But yeah, I'm not having a pension to fall back on. Suddenly it seems like, oh yeah, staying healthy is really quite important. And I'm not the healthiest, most sportiest, activist person ever, far from it. I have to probably think a bit more about things I can do. And I don't mean as in New Year's resolutions, but just, there's only me, just me. So I'm going to get stuck into Steve's Gibson soon. And as expected, when I mentioned it on my Facebook page, I knew straight away that it would attract some comments and attention from people, which is always the way, if you do anything with a much loved brand, big brand named guitar, you get people with views that it should or shouldn't be done a certain way. And it's been, I haven't had too much abuse, but there are a couple of views which have been, it's the marks on that Gibson back are not enough to warrant removing the finish. And of course the kind of point on it is, it may well not be enough in your estimation to do it, and you wouldn't do it. I'm trying to get this thing going the right way around, damn it. Yeah, well, it may not be a good reason for you to do it to your guitar. It's clearly important enough to Steve to want me to do it. And it raises that kind of interesting question about, do some people think, and I don't know if these people are luthiers or techs, or whether they're owners who, just great, very strong Gibson fans, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are some people who think I should tell Steve, no, I'm not prepared to, remove the finish or the history of the original finish by doing this. You know, it's a travesty kind of thing. And maybe they would say that to a customer, but when I know what a customer wants, and I'm very careful to be very mindful of what the customer wants, then to be honest, I don't see any way I would second guess that and decide to do otherwise. So it's a tricky one. Would you say no? I can't do this to a Gibson. I will not do it. I will not do it. It's against my religion. So it's just really difficult, because I kind of understand what people mean. It's like, you know, somebody, oh geez, what, we're on low power, oh hell, fire, right, hold on, low battery, let me stop, can I close, low power, can I stop this, let's stop a minute, oh it's already stopped, stop. Right, well we're on emergency power. Yes, it happened. So really I'm going to try and get you all the way down this end. I don't think we'll get a very good, maybe we'll get a funny view from here. Not perfect, but at least you can see what I'm doing here. Yeah, that funny thing about do you say to your customer, no, I can't possibly do that, or do you do what they want? And I think my line on this was, look, I've told the customer what the implications are. In other words, you know, rule number one, there are many people who would ... So for example, who would say, I don't want to, it's devalued it from me, I don't want a refinished, or Gibson 335 with a refinished back, right? That's what somebody is quite within their rights to say and might say. In which case, you know, be aware of that. And that's one thing to know. The other thing to know is that you know, it may not come out exactly you know, the same as the original colour. It'll be close, but it may not be perfect because it's not done in all at the same time in the factory. It's done as a separate piece, the back, rather than all of it. So, you know, there are just things to be aware of, and all you can do is, you know, check with your customer that they A, understand those things, and B, are comfortable with them. And Steve absolutely is. He knows that that's the case, and for him it's a guitar that's a permanent keeper and he has no intention of selling it. So the issue about it devaluing it in some way is moot. So you know, that's fine then, as long as we know. And that's for the people who have the concern about how can you do that to a Gibson. Well, that's the best I can do, is to check with the customer that they're okay with, you know, what the world thinks is the right and wrong thing to do to a Gibson, and once he's appraised of that and he's absolutely happy, he wants it to go ahead, then I do what he wants. I mean, it would be insane to know better than my customer and say, no, I'm not going to do it. You obviously don't understand quality guitars. You're an idiot. I know better than you, and therefore I'm going to have a code of Gibson conduct that's greater than my desire to please you and do what you would like. I mean, that would be mad. and I don't have an allegiance to a guitar being any particular way, any way other than what the customer wants it to be, you know. And if they're doing something that they may regret, all I can do is say, you realise that if you do this, the following will happen or won't happen. And as long as I appraise them of that and they're happy, then we're happy. But you do find that quite a lot of people, that isn't okay for them. You know, and I wonder, you know, whether they are guitar techs or Gibson owners or Gibson fans, you know. I suspect, well, I don't know what they are, but you know, for them, all we can say is that the principle of you shouldn't do that to a Gibson matters more than what your customer says. Yes, I understand that, but I want this. And if that's the case, then I guess, you know, their business would respectfully decline the customer's business. Frankly, I don't see where it does any good treating a customer like they're doing something wrong. Providing you share with them benefit of what you know that they might not know. So you might say, are you aware that if you do this, you will devalue the thing? And if they go, oh blimey, I didn't know that, I better not do it. Fine, you've done your bit. But if other than that, telling them they're wrong is not a smart look. Okay, so now I'm going down to set the action on this side, the bass side. So, no, I wouldn't turn down a customer, and I guess I just have to know that there are people who will come at me like that's some sort of crime against guitars that I've committed. You know, some people do see it as extreme as that. I mean, a similar time, if I remember, if there was a similar kind of situation, it was with the whole issue of Gibsons, you know, and whether a luthier or a tech should even touch a Gibson or should tell the customer that they're putting honest, decent American workers out of business, and you know, that sort of thing, for Chinese junk. And I've had a few people in the past rail at me and pour scorn for having spent time and a customer's money on a Gibson. Which the funny part being is that, of course, the customer, you know, again, the same thing applies. You say to them, you do realise that by the time you've spent X amount of pounds or dollars on all this flashy hardware that I can put into this Gibson for you, it's still only a Gibson, and it won't be worth any more than a Gibson on the open market, because the open market is very unsentimental about how much you spent on so-called upgrades. It doesn't consider it worth anything. As long as people understand that, and every time I've explained something like that, people have always said, no, it's just for me, I absolutely understand that, I'm just doing it for the fun of whatever. And so so long as somebody knows that, then we're good. Right, I'm just going to skip across all of these one more time. Most of those are really good. So what I'm doing with getting this first fret action as good as I can get it is I'm making sure that this guitar is as playable at this end as it can possibly be. If we can't do too many adjustments at the other end, we can certainly adjust it at this end so that it's light and easy to play. So that's what I'm aiming for here. I think that's good. I like everything. No, I like it where it is. Now a little bit on the bass strings, one more go. Here we go on the red, the 26. Good. Nearly there. Yep. Nearly there. Nearly there. Start again. Problem is when you get down to the fatter slots, it's a lot harder to get it just right. Slow. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing what the customer wants with that Gibson. And actually, I've been kind of overly cautious about it, which is fine because it's a Gibson and, it's not a 200 quid Japanese, Chinese guitar, but at the same time, I notice that my caution is often over amplified. I'm more cautious than I need be. I sort of become self-doubting In some ways it's not a bad thing to do, because it puts you on a sort of double check everything kind of mentality. Which is better than blundering in to something and getting it horribly wrong. So it's hard to cut these thicker nut slots. I think I am where I want to be. You can actually see that G is still a tiny bit higher than I want. G would be that one. I'm good. Stick it on one end and it sticks up the other end. That's that. Oh well, that's the wood. After all of that, I can't. I'm not going to mess with that. What I might do is put a bit of what's that stuff? Got it over here somewhere. That stuff, Milliput. Just fill that little tiny gap in, because it's sitting on that little bit that was sticking up where I stuck it back down, and I didn't flatten it out totally. Anyway, whoops, there we go. Power low, power not low. Quick zoom out while we're here. So, look at that. You'd hardly know, would you? Yeah, there we go. There's probably, realistically, there's probably still a tiny bit of room there, but I think the high E is as low as I would want to go, so I wouldn't go any further. So that's the improvements made, and like I say, a tiny bit of milliput under that gap. That's my fault for not scraping the nut slot flatter after gluing that thing in. But anyway, there we go. Done. Time to finish. Thanks for watching. See you soon.